Our I can statement for this video is, I can explain how fractions and decimals are alike, and they are alike in many ways. As you can see down in the corner, I have a dime on the screen, so we'll be using money to explain this as well. I'm going to start by looking at this top bar and dividing it into equal fractions. One thing we have to remember is that fractions and decimals are alike because they represent a part of a whole. So if we consider that this whole, or this bar, is one thing, we're going to call this our unit. So this equals 1. If we filled up this whole thing, we would call it 1. And if we cut it into equal parts, we can say that each part of this is a fraction of the whole. So I can see that I divided it into 4 equal parts, so I'll call each of these 1/4. And if we put 2 of them together, we would have 2/4, or 3/4, or 4/4. And if I add all of them together, 4/4, we can see that the numerator and the denominator are the same, so we get 1 whole. Likewise, if I did something similar to the next one and I cut it into 5 equal parts, it's a little trickier. So 5 equal parts. Pretend they're equal. I can see that they're actually not. This one looks a little smaller, but we're going to pretend that they are exactly the same. We could call each of these 1/5. 1 out of 5 equal parts. Now, if I decided to shade or talk about 3 of these, this now represents not 1/5, but it represents 3/5. And likewise, if I shaded another one, it would be 4/5, and all the way up to 5/5 would be a total of 1 whole. So that's fractions, but now decimals are very similar in that they represent part of a whole. So let's look at the bottom bar now and think of it as a decimal instead of a fraction. If I said that this bar represented a whole, again, so this equals 1, the whole thing, I could also think of it as $1. We'll just write that over here as well. We're going to say that this could equal $1, 1 whole dollar. And if I divide this into 10 equal parts, each part would be 1/10 of a dollar, or 1/10 of the whole. And if each part there equals 1/10 of a dollar, I know that there are 10 dimes in a dollar. So that would be, each one of these spots would be 1 dime. So I can put those in there to represent 1 dime in each spot. So 10 dimes makes a whole dollar. Now we can think about each of those spots in a couple different ways. So if I wanted to talk about just this spot right here, I know that that is 1/10 of the whole as a fraction. I also know that if we're talking about money, it would be $0.10. And if I look at this dollar amount in a different way, and I take away the dollar sign, I know that it's 0 wholes and 1/10 of a dollar. All of those, 1/10 of a whole, all of those represent the exact same number, because this is the tenths place, or the dimes place. In decimals, notice that I've just left off the 0. This place value right here represents 1/10, which is the same as it is right here. So here's 3 different ways to think about this number. We have a 1 of 10 equal parts, right here, 1 out of 10 equal parts, or 1 dime, or 1/10 of a dollar, 1 dime, or 1 in the tenths place. And remember, in our last video, we talked about this being the tenths place. That's what we call it. So let's for a second pretend that we are talking about 3 dimes. Well, everything that's a 1 there is just going to change to a 3. So now I have 3 of 10 equal parts, 3 dimes, or 3/10 of a dollar, and then 3 in the tenths place. So it would look like this. 3/10, which is the same as 3/10, which is the same as $0.30, or 3 dimes. If I wanted to think of this as pennies for money, I know that there are 100 pennies in $1. So instead of putting dimes in there, I would need 10 pennies to fill each spot, so 10 pennies. If I wanted to talk about one of those pennies, I would be talking about 1/100th of a dollar. So you can see all of these are identical. 1 penny is the same as 1/100th, is the same as 1 penny or 1 cent, and over here we have the hundredths place, so it would be 1/100th of a dollar. If I wanted to talk about 2 pennies, that would be 2 hundredths. 3 pennies would be 3 hundredths, 3 in the hundredths place. And one last connection, if I wanted to talk about 10 pennies, I know that that is going to equal $0.10. Oh, that looks very similar to 1/10. So we could say that 1/10 equals 10 hundredths. Notice that the digit in the tenths place is exactly the same, and there's a 0 after it. That 0 doesn't add anything. There's no more pennies. It's exactly the same as 1/10.